Welcome to another edition of AARP's NC Triangle Talks, and today we're talking about crisis resources. As we enter our second year now of this pandemic, we are seeing our most vulnerable citizens stretched to the breaking point and beyond as they struggle with food security, housing, emotional support, education needs. The list just goes on and on. We're here today with Leslie Francisci, Program Director, and Donna Pygott, Executive Director of North Raleigh Ministries. North Raleigh Ministries has started in 2004 and applies its mission statement to equip families and individuals in crisis with the resources and skills they need to achieve stability to the people of North Raleigh. Welcome, ladies.
Hi. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. I thought we'd start off by perhaps Donna, you could give us an overview and background of North Raleigh Ministries and its operating model.
Sure. So North Raleigh Ministries was founded by 5 North Hills churches in Raleigh in 2004, as you mentioned. And the whole idea of it was to provide services to the community in a streamlined, very efficient manner. And so it just started out with a small food pantry, and then ultimately some benevolent support, some financial crisis assistance. And since then, we have grown to have a significant sized food pantry and also 2 thrift store locations. So it's grown tremendously, and we offer a lot more services than we did back when it was founded.
You mentioned the stores. Perhaps you could talk about your sources of funding and how you operate to get the resources that you need to provide services.
Sure. So the thrift stores are our primary revenue sources for the ministry. And considering the COVID situation, we've had to expand out into crisis fundraising and other fundraising activities to help meet the needs of the organization's budget. But the thrift store's primary funding source are church partners, which are probably 22 church partners. They are also another funding source for us, and then contributions from community members.
And of those contributions, I know that at the Strickland Road facility, you accept donations. What type of donations do you accept?
Sure. So at the thrift store off of Strickland Road, we accept gently used or new goods and items. So there's a list of what we don't accept, which is a lot easier to see. That's on our website under our thrift shops tab. But we accept almost anything outside of bedding and any hazardous materials or anything that would be dangerous to a child. Other than that, clothes, household goods, we have electronics, you name it. It's like a mini department store, so you can pretty much get everything you need there.
And then these are sold to the general public that comes into. You now have 2 thrift stores. You opened up
Yes.
an expansion during COVID, which is amazing.
Yeah.
To be able to do that. Do you accept donations at both stores?
We only accept donations at the Strickland Road location. We just aren't equipped at the Brentwood Road location to accept donations yet. And maybe sometime in the future we will be, but right now just Strickland Road.
Okay. Leslie, you could maybe talk about some of the programs that you offer. We've mentioned food. We've mentioned crisis support. I know that you do many things there.
Yeah. So the majority of our individuals and families who come to us, they are coming here for food. That's usually the way that we meet families to begin with. And that's a really easy drive up curbside process. But they're not just leaving with the food. So every family who comes to us is offered our guidance and prayer program. So we have on staff here our intake worker. She has her master's in biblical counseling, and our case manager has his master's in divinity. And we also have interns here working as social workers. I myself am a licensed clinical social worker. So every person who comes to us is offered to have a one-on-one sit down, be that in person, virtual, phone, but assessment to really figure out, okay, what is the root cause of what's going on here? Because hunger, it can look like lots of different things. This could just be a family who just lost their jobs and had enough money to get by, and they've hit this place where they don't anymore and there's not an income or job in sight. It could be a family that has just really struggled to make ends meet for a long, long time with food, and they're kind of always falling short at the end of the month. But the point of the assessment is to dig into what are these families' strengths? How can we pull on different resources in the community to really just get to that root cause and have this problem fixed for them so that they're not struggling, having to get this outside assistance. How can we work on that? And so the work that we do is a whole lot of educational programming. It's a lot of skills. It's doing resumes. It's helping with finding jobs. And families who engage, it could be that if this is a one-time assessment, we spend, time with them once, and they kind of feel like they can move on and make some changes. And sometimes it's an ongoing relationship where we're working with families for, several weeks or up to a month. The families that really are desiring to engage and make lasting change, that's who we really are engaging through our Journey program. And that's a combination of case management, so one-on-one weekly coaching with a professional, the full financial piece university, and that's done in a group setting simultaneously with the one-on-one coaching. And then their grocery needs are essentially met during that 12-week program. So it's something that they can take off their plate and regroup around their finances and a lot of the reasons why they're struggling financially. So we see so many families that come in and they think that they have a financial problem, but that's really just a symptom of so many other things that are going on in their lives that have to do with, relationship challenges, mental health and substance abuse challenges, physical health challenges. And so those are the things that we're getting to the root of and really working on with families.
This reminds me of the parable of give the person a fish and they'll eat for a day, teach them a fish and they'll provide for themselves. So you are both providing the immediate necessary support that's needed to sustain them, and then giving them and equipping them with the tools for long-term success. Is that a correct assessment?
Yes, and that's to anyone who desires that. We definitely have families who just need that food, that one-time type of assistance, and that's okay too. We just really want to be an agency that meets families where they are. That's something that's really important.
Now, you had mentioned that North Raleigh Ministries was established from the North Raleigh area. I understand that there are a set of zip codes that are kind of your service area. If someone comes in from outside of that area, though, do you partner with other organizations and other groups, or can you direct them to still maintain that help? Either one of you.
Absolutely. So over the course of this year in particular, we have gotten calls from a family member in New Jersey who's worried about their brother who's living down here in North Carolina. So our staff and interns are very skilled. And I like to think of it, we're not just giving them, call this number, go here. It's a true sit down, look at their whole situation. Because a lot of times people might be asking you for financial resource or a housing resource, but when you really dig into the situation, there's a whole lot more going on. There are safety issues. There are things that really need to be addressed. And so you can help them kind of tease out, what do I need to do first? And so definitely we spend a lot of time figuring out what is the actual problem and kind of a step-by-step of how this is going to get solved. So I would say that's probably one of our most valuable programs, just because you can call and just get a person who is going to sit down and spend time with you right when you need it, it's something that doesn't exist that easily elsewhere in the community.
Now, Donna, I'm assuming that this last year, in addition to closing down the operations and cutting off source of funding, has also seen a huge increase in demand for your services and things. Can you describe maybe what it was like in 2019, and then all of a sudden 2020 was dumped on you? What have your challenges been in managing that growth, and what are the numbers, if you have any of those that you could share?
Sure. So in 2019, we were, just really, even though it's a really busy place all the time, I felt like in 2019 we were on easy street, and just, God had blessed us tremendously, and we would just keep growing the organization. And we have goals to have a standalone crisis and development center in the future. But of course, during the COVID crisis and this pandemic, it was fascinating. We had to close, as you said, the parts of our operations. And so what we decided to do, Leslie and I came together and said, hey, let's focus on food, because there's so much instability in the job market. And so we don't really know what people will need, and we know that we can provide food. So we sent out messages to the community for massive food drives, and food was coming in by the ton. And then also we were entered into crisis fundraising to help us just be able to continue to keep that pantry door open and continue to serve. And so we doubled the amount of food that was given out to the community that needed it in 2020. So it altogether, it's about 630,000 pounds of food, which includes, we kept our weekly produce stand open. And so it has baked goods and produce on Thursday afternoon, so it can help fill the gap across the weekend. And so it was a lot of food for us, and we had a lot of logistical challenges and a very limited staff to be able to do that work. So it was interesting, but we made it happen, and it did give us time to just sort of sit back and think about what the services we were providing really accomplished in the community, and how we can roll that into safe social distancing practice once we were able to reopen the Crisis and Development Center as a whole. So we were blessed last year, and we pray that God continues to bless us to do this work, because it is exhausting. Leslie can tell you.
Well, I did it.
We've laughed, we've argued, and it's been really, it's been great and challenging all at the same time.
Yeah, I was gonna add to what Donna said. Although our thrift shops had to close for a period of time, our pantry literally did not have to close for one day. So we were, while our food suppliers had closed down and weren't being able to deliver to us, we never closed. So it was just amazing. And that's my favorite part of last year, is that we never had a client come here and have to see a sign that, so we were all able to stay healthy, stay stocked with food, and stay open, which is just unbelievable still in retrospect.
Yeah.
So
A great effort. Am I correct that you also participate in the Food Buddies?
So
Backpack
Backpack Buddies.
There we go.
Mhm.
Yes.
Backpack Buddies has kind of become well known through some larger agencies, but it's actually a grassroots effort, which is kind of interesting, where really anyone, so a church or a food pantry or like Interfaith Food Shuttle, you can start your Backpack Buddies program. And what that really looks like is reaching out to your local school and just saying, I want to help, like, how do you have children that we could help sponsor for weekend meals? And so that kind of, the assumptions of Backpack Buddies are that children who receive free lunch at school also need help with food over the weekends when they're not getting free or reduced cost lunch or breakfast. And so it's a bag. It's not actually a backpack, which is interesting, but it goes in the child's backpack on Fridays, but a bag of easy to prepare snacks and foods. And we kind of took that a step further this year. in August, we realized like the schools were really not going back, and they had some neat ideas about how to make sure that families were getting food, that children were getting food. But we kind of thought more holistically, because if the child's food insecure, that means the whole home is food insecure. And Backpack Buddies is for elementary and middle school children, but you also have preschool children, and you have high schoolers, and you have older adults in the homes with a lot of our families are mixed generation homes. So you have grandparents, parents, and children. And so we wanted to make sure first they knew this whole food pantry was open to them. But second, because we know how much children eat and how costly that food is, we decided to do a full week's worth. So replacing those breakfast and lunches, kids were home learning virtually, and a lot of them were home alone learning virtually. So really easy to prepare foods. And the family was able to pick up this extra bag of food every week for each of their children, in addition to their pantry groceries that they came to receive. So what started out as a great idea, because we really budgeted to do this like maybe through December, has turned into this like huge call to action from our churches and the community to keep this going, because the families we've worked with have said this has been the most valuable help, and we didn't understand that it was going to be that way. But it's just every month the number of bags we give out have gone up and up and up and up. So families can come get those every week, which is nice, because they don't have to go like to the school for different programs. We're open in the evening. We have daytime hours, so it's really flexible. They can come on their own schedule. And we're just now have decided to keep that going through the summer. So few kids are back at school now that we're giving out way more food this way than we were when we were even partnering through the school. And during the summertime, kids are going to be home again. You're not going to see summer camps opening like they were. And it's going to continue to be challenging for parents. So that's something that we're going to keep doing. And I would say that's the best thing that you could donate to if you were so inclined, because it is just so expensive to run, but we have just gotten so much positive feedback that we need to keep it going for the kids in the community.
Yeah, so I want to add to what Leslie said. It's expensive because we buy the Backpack Buddies food. That food is not donated. It is very expensive to be able to support the number of children that we've been able to each week or each month and week. So
yeah. It's very specific types of food. So when we partner through like the food bank and Interfaith, the way that they've been running right now through COVID is you pretty much get what you get. So you're not really able to do inventory and ordering. And so, we end up with a lot of certain products and not at all enough of others. And because Backpack Buddy food is just so specific, it's really hard to keep that. Also, there are still purchasing limits a lot of times, like when what we need is so in bulk. There's still so many stores that won't let you kind of come in and wipe them out of certain products, even though we beg and plead for them to let us have special, rules. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, I think the pandemic has exposed so many people to the logistics of how things move through the supply chain that you come to appreciate that, why can't I get toilet paper? It's so difficult.
Yeah.
In food distribution, especially when things are perishable, and you add that feature into it, it makes it very difficult. So in terms of volunteering or donating, or what are your biggest needs now? Money, obviously, that's the easiest way to get things that helps you purchase things. But in addition, what else? Expertise, volunteers to staff things?
Yeah, sure. So we are in desperate need of volunteers at both of our thrift store locations. And so what I'd like to share is that the Strickland Road location it's smaller. So distancing is a little bit more challenging at Strickland Road. But we're doing a great job. We have not had to close, and we've had zero COVID transfer cases within any location of the organization. But the new store off Capitol and Brentwood is much, much larger. And so there's tons of just distancing opportunities and tons to do there. And what I love most about volunteerism at North Raleigh Ministries is that it is very much a support system and like a family. And so all of the volunteers are close, and we have volunteer leaders on each day of the week, and they keep people connected. And so that is like the big reward about volunteering with us. And then also, if you want to donate gently used quality items that are saleable, and please don't give us any that are not saleable, because that just drastically increases our recycling bills. But we always accept gently used goods at our donation door off of Lead Mine and Strickland Road. And then food, and visit our website, and you can get a list of all of the food needs that we have that is donated at the Strickland Road location as well, because that's where our food pantry is located.
Mm-hmm. And we keep, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
We keep our food list updated. Every week we have new needs. And so it just changes that quickly with what's coming in. But I would definitely say the food itself has been amazing. Donations for food are amazing. But also donations that are not for food are amazing, because we had over this past year, it's like, money for food. And we're like, okay, we still have like our costs and our staff. And like, so to keep things
Right.
like guidance and prayer and journey going, it's so important, because otherwise we would just be doing food and seeing no lasting change in people's lives. And so I did want to share, I know with COVID, volunteer opportunities that aren't, hands-on are also important. But we've had some really creative food drives and things happen this year, where if you have like a truck or a trailer, sending out to the neighborhood, we're going to be filling up this trailer for North Raleigh Ministries. Just come by and drop your food off in it. And we've had people just drive their truck or trailer here, and we literally come out and get it out of the truck. So it's essentially like a contactless way to do something really important. And our food drives, we were just so sustained through the end of last year, and especially the holidays, but no one is really thinking about food anymore, because I don't know, I guess for a lot of people, COVID is kind of like, they feel like it's sort of, things are slowing down, vaccine. And then with the holidays over, that giving that we typically see, we're already noticing it in our shelves. Right. And so think about in the spring, the summer, these non-traditional food times, we do a ton of extra work at the holidays, but our need is continuous all year. And it's scarier this year when we start to see it, the shelves start to kind of deplete, because we don't know that we can keep up that amount. And that's super important to us, is that people know what to expect and what they're going to get when they come here, so that they can plan their budgets around that. So
right, until demand decreases, you're still in that mode. And I should confess here, as a truth in advertising, I am a lapsed volunteer. I'm waiting until I get on the other side of the COVID vaccinations before I come back, and I will. It's been it was a joy to work and see all the things that people donate. I mean, I never knew a lot of these things existed, and to see the joy of people buying them and saying, "Oh, I've been looking for something like this since childhood," or whatever. So, if you're into vintage electronics, that's a great place to look. I encourage you, if people have not been into one of the thrift shops, it will be a delight, and it changes daily in terms of what is offered there. So it's it was a find. My family first found this. My wife found it as my son was going off to college, and it was a great way to equip a dorm room
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the thrift shops are great. And I tell you, if anyone is experiencing budget challenges right now, you can find almost everything you need at these thrift stores, quality clothing.
Many
We
with
just have
new
that.
tags on, still have the tags
Yeah.
on them.
I know. I love it. And the sad thing is if you work here, there's no time to shop. But,
Yeah.
for the community, if your budget's tight, if your budget isn't tight, it is fun. It's like a treasure hunt and also a department store, all at the same time. So,
Right.
yeah, we'll
And
be looking for you to be back, Scott.
I'm
I'm like, I know, Scott.
targeting sometime in April. I should be through the final thing if continues on.
Yeah.
So
So I hope the vaccines, really help people get out, but the new strains that are coming around and in uncertainties and such, it really does keep the demand for our services and the Crisis and Development Center hopping. And so I really hope people find out, what works for them and how they can be involved because we pretty much can offer all types of opportunity here.
So as this goes forward, and there will be an end to the pandemic, or at least there will be another on the other side of that. What areas? What's your vision of continuing? Obviously, the food bank things. Are there other areas of support and crisis that you've identified that you would like to develop programs for?
Oh, definitely. So we're still moving forward with all of our programming. It just looks so different this year. But what we've really found a need for are specific workshops. So a lot of times families, they might not need like a whole full journey program, but they really do want to come in and do some resume work, some different things like that, which we've seen a lot of other agencies are not. You can't just walk in and kind of get that help on demand exactly. But just some really specific things like that. We also want to get some of our other programs back up and running. So we were doing a Cooking Matters course, which was like hands-on cooking. It really the population we serve have a lot of diet related health issues. And so it was a lot of learning how to cook and shop on a budget, building up their support system with these other individuals in the class. A lot of our individuals we work with are isolated and they don't really get that social piece. We also had a parenting support support group, which was amazing. And so it's figuring out how to bring some of these things back in a way that's safe. Because we used to just be all in there together. It seems crazy now. We had the kids in one room doing childcare and we're eating food together, cooking together. And you're like, that's not going to work for a really long time now. So trying to figure out how to keep a lot of these things, maybe do them virtually. But this year's really been focused on journey because we've just seen such dramatic results from the families that finish this class. And when I say dramatic, I mean, we have people coming in who are actually homeless, sleeping on the couch of someone they know a little bit. And at the end, they're ready to, move into their own place. And that's all through their own doing. So they're able to save an emergency fund. Lots of people are downsizing from things they can't afford to things that they actually can. So a sustainable budget that's not reliant on outside support to maintain their household. And to me, it's that dignity and just respect that they leave with being able to do that our energies and efforts are going into that program because it works so well.
Do you have any statistics on kind of repeat, how many people do escape the constraints that they've had and how many people, I mean, in COVID, I mean, you could have been gotten whole again in 2018 or 19, and then something happens like COVID, you lose your job and you're back in there.
Exactly.
So
That's such a good question. So we were really able to kick this off big time last summer. We did it anyway, like virtually these groups. So we now are on our third cohort, so our third 12-week group. And what we do are 3, 6, and 12-month follow-ups. So essentially, we know if they've come back to our food pantry. That's an easy thing to see, which they don't. But what we want to know is in 3, 6, and 12 months, have they continued to pay debt down? Are they still in a stable living situation? And we actually use an evidence-based tool where we track these things at the beginning when we meet them, at the end of their 12 weeks, so we can see improvement on these domains like housing, their, like I said, relationships, healthcare, all these different areas in their life. And we use that same tool again 3, 6, and 12 months later. So right now we're looking at doing our follow-ups with our second cohort of participants. But so far, everyone's been able to maintain that emergency fund, continue to pay debt down, and then work on these more long-term goals. Because we're with them for 12 weeks, but their goals that they've set for themselves, I mean, they go out years from now. So we do a support group, and that is pretty much rolling. So every set of new graduates comes into that group. It's also virtual right now, but it's where you give hope, encouragement, suggestions. Everybody keeps each other going in that positive direction. And so many of our individuals and families just need that positive group. They don't have that in their lives, in their friend groups or their families sometimes. So
that sounds like it's a super program, and it's not just help them in they're out of your concern or care following through. So that's, I think, a wonderful example of how the community can pull together to help people that have dire crisis needs here. I appreciate you both joining us today and sharing the workings of North Raleigh Ministries. Are there anything final that you would like to say before we close out?
No, just thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Letting us share. Any opportunity to do that is much appreciated.
And for all the listeners out there, stop by the thrift store in Harvest Plaza, take a walk through, and find that gift that you've always been looking for. All right. And I'll always end this on a plea for volunteers. I'll include, if you have an interest, contact North Raleigh Ministry, and there is something there for you to do. Believe me, they're very good at working with their volunteers. You can have a very flexible schedule and find something that you can do either out on the shop floor, or what I do is work on the electronics bench and make certain the things that are donated actually work and function the way they're supposed to. And then also, if you have a desire, AARP always has uses for volunteers for activities like this. We're helping provide information to the community, to our fraud watch networks, to advocating for legislative moves. So I thank you for that. And we will, yes, then PAX Baptist just put the contact for there. If you're interested in volunteering for AARP, contact PAX, and we too will find a use for your skills. So on behalf of AARP North Carolina, thank you very much, and have a good day.
Thank you, Scott.